Yes, the sun is shining on the battlefield here in Leicestershire. It's been a day here really of much anticipation and high emotion, and people have been coming here, this spirit of occasion, and enjoying the day really. But I think this is the moment where things will take a more solemn turn. This is the moment, obviously, where King Richard III will come back to this battlefield 530 years after he was defeated and killed on this land. I have the order of service in front of me. There is going to be a service once his coffin has been brought to the field. It will be brought up the path that you're looking at, and then it will go and be put in front of a sundial. And the Bishop of Leicester, Tim Stevens, will take the service, and lots of people, almost 2,000 people are here, members of the public who have turned out to see this occasion, and 500 VIPs and dignitaries. Now, this service to honour the memory of King Richard III will also remember others who died alongside him and in the service of their country, as his mortal remains make their final journey to Leicester Cathedral. Because after the service here at the battlefield, the coffin will then go to Market Bosworth, and then, as we've been hearing all day, we'll go back to the cathedral in Leicester, where there will be several days where his body will lie in repose, and members of the public will be allowed to go in and file past the coffin and see the king that was found in that bizarre twist under the car park. As I say, the service here will be conducted by the Right Reverend Tim Stevens, the Bishop of Leicester, and the minister, the Reverend Julia Hargreaves, the team vicar, will also be here. And when the coffin is brought in, people have been telling me that they will be throwing white roses in front of the coffin to pay tribute to this king. Then there will be prayers, there will be readings, the procession will occur, and then there will be a moment of silence, and then there will be a 21-gun salute. You may have seen the pictures all day here at the battlefield, where reenactors and historians have been turning up, and it is the historians, the reenactors, the people who've been dressed up in all this medieval dress that will take part in that 21-gun salute. Then there will be more prayers. Then there will be a receiving of the soils. A casket of soils containing soils from 3 key sites is going to be brought to the Bishop of Leicester by Philippa Langley of the Richard III Society. This is the lady who's been on television for many days now. She is the lady who's one of the driving forces behind that dig at the car park in Leicester. She will bring that casket of soils to this ceremony. We're just waiting now. A lot of waiting. Things are slightly delayed. People looking at their watches. But I don't think anyone really minds that there's a slight delay on this, Adam, because, of course, you don't get another day like this. You don't get a day where you see a King of England reburied. And of course that's not happening today, but today is the day which marks the several days, the ceremonial days, which will be taking place across Leicestershire in the next few days. The eyes of the world on Leicestershire today.
Joe, fascinating to see the crowds there. Do you think people are drawn simply by the ceremony and by the event, or is there an abiding interest in this king and his rather battered reputation?
Yes, he is a king with a reputation problem, there is no doubt. But whoever you speak to, they want to put his reputation aside. Some people think he was the victim of Tudor propaganda. Some people say he was a very loyal king, a very good king, a good warrior, and they want him to be remembered as a king should, and that's why many of them are pleased with the way events have turned out. Whoever you speak to here today doesn't really want to talk ill of the dead. One man said to me earlier on today, he said he just wanted to be here for the sense of occasion.
And those crowds that are there are in good numbers, Joe, and curious. What are we expecting to see happen next?
Yeah, very good numbers, and of course everyone is saying to me that we've been completely blessed with the weather. But I have to say, Adam, I think even if it was thunder and raining here, I don't think people would stay away from this. This is a momentous occasion. No matter what you think of the story of King Richard III, people have come out because they want to see this, and they've brought their families with them. People have travelled from far and wide. We know people have come from abroad. I spoke to one woman today who'd come from Edinburgh, said she got up at 5 o'clock this morning and said she just had to be here. So she got in the car and drove here. And when I was talking to her, she was getting slightly choked up. And I think that's true of many people that you speak to here. Many people have been getting quite upset and emotional at what they are about to see. Like I said earlier on, the sense of occasion here is huge, and it has, I think many people have really enjoyed this day, but I think this is the moment that things will take a more serious and a more solemn turn.
And just remind us, Joe, as we watch these images and await the arrival of King Richard III's coffin, the curious circumstances surrounding the discovery of his body, which was in a car park.
Yes, he was dug out of that municipal car park, 5 centuries after his mutilated body was taken from this battlefield. I remember hearing this story at the very beginning of all this, and it's one of those things where you just think, you can't make that up. And it was Philippa Langley, the lady from the Richard III Society, one of the driving forces behind finding him. And there was that remarkable story, wasn't there, about there being an R on the tarmac in the car park. And that R actually meant reserved parking. But she said she had a feeling when she saw that's where he was buried. And what's really remarkable about this whole story, it's so serendipitous, Adam, if you like, because the trenches that were built to find him, they found him almost straight away. And I'm told if they'd gone an inch to the left or an inch to the right, they just wouldn't have found him. Now, I'm not an archaeologist or an expert in those sorts of things, but if that is true, then that is just wholly remarkable. The fact that they did find him, and now, as many people have said, he can have a right and proper reburial.
We're told that the arrival of that coffin is pretty imminent, Joe, but just as we continue to reflect on the surroundings of this, fascinating as well that so many people over the course of centuries and certainly decades notably have worked very, very hard to preserve and promote the reputation of the king and to look for his body. Yes, because lots of people think he was a bad king. He reigned for about 2 years and he died in his 30s. Lots of people say he was responsible for the death of his nephews in the Tower of London. Lots of theories, lots of rumours, and lots of people will say, that was just down to Tudor propaganda and that he was a very, very good king. And there are lots of people who are enthusiastic about promoting the good side of Richard III. As you can see now, the procession looks like it's starting to walk up the battlefield. So these people we're seeing here are clearly enthusiasts, Joe, and have adopted what I assume is the uniform of people who would have been around at the end of the 15th century. Yes, it's remarkable to see, isn't it, the costumes. I was calling these people reenactors earlier on, but I got told off. Historians. These are historians who have turned up to play a significant part in this procession. They've been practising all morning here, Adam. This, what you're seeing at the moment, we've seen this a couple of times already today. These people have been here from so early this morning, practising, making sure that this looks right and is appropriate, because let's face it, they're not going to get a second chance to do this again. Let's listen into some of the, I nearly said entertainment, that would be the wrong word, some of the music and pageantry that unfolds as King Richard III's coffin approaches Bosworth.
What the fuck was that?
So we are still just waiting for the coffin to enter the battlefield site, and it will process up that little gravel path that you can see in front of me, where those historians have just walked past. Gentleman now coming with white roses. Very strange. Like I say earlier on today, there's been a real sense of occasion and enjoyment here today. But now it's gone really eerily quiet.
Joe, for those who are joining us at this moment, just give us a reminder of the significance of Bosworth, because this, of course, was where Richard III fell.
So this is where Richard III fell in 1485, 530 years ago. He was defeated here by Henry Tudor, and he was confident going into this battle, the historians will tell us, but it didn't go his way. Not only was he defeated, he was killed. And we're told by the experts that looked at his skull that he had around 8 injuries to his head. One even said one blow was so bad that part of his brain would have been exposed. You feel sick to the stomach talking about this now. But of course this was medieval times. These were medieval battles. They were gruesome, they were brutal. And it's also said that his body was dumped in a river. Some people say that is simply not the case. And he was put onto a horse. He was dragged out of this field, put onto a horse and paraded into Leicester. So people could see the king was dead. And then he had this rather hurried burial at the friary in Leicester. Of course, that land then changed over the years, over the centuries. And now we know it became a council car park. And that is where King Richard III was discovered in the most bizarre of circumstances. This is a story that's been going on for over 2 years. The digging and the rowing and the debating and the testing is now all over. And he will be reburied this Thursday at Leicester Cathedral. And of course, today, to mark the ceremony, today marks the whole ceremonial week.
And Joe, we're just seeing a picture there from our helicopter above the scene, which is moving away, but we did see the coffin that is carrying the body of King Richard III was just at the start of that shot. We're panning across now to the position where it will eventually go to, and we will move back, I'm sure, to further coverage of that, but fascinating to see that initial image of that coffin arriving in place with very considerable number of people around it, Joe. There is a real sense of ceremony around this, isn't there?
Oh yes, absolutely. And like I was saying to you, it's been a really happy occasion here today. And until now, I think, I can tell you, Adam, you really can't hear anybody talking, besides me, of course. The crowds have fallen completely silent. You can hear the click of camera phones and cameras, obviously, but they have decided that this is the moment they will remain quiet. A poignant day, Adam, and they want to make sure that they pay their respects in the right way.
Fascinating, isn't it, Joe? This is a king who was derided, really, for centuries. And yet, so much attention now on his story and on the history around him, the arguments as to his merits. Fascinating that people who are watching this do feel that sense of solemnity about this event. It's almost as if the passage of time has made people feel perhaps a little softer towards this person.
Yes, it's really strange, isn't it? Some people will still hold the view that he was a awful king. He was a horrible man. He was responsible for the death of his nephews in the Tower of London. But there are other people here who say that is total rubbish, and he has been much maligned by playwrights. Obviously, he was depicted in a certain way as well by Shakespeare. But most people will put down the idea that he was a bad person and a bad king down to Tudor propaganda.
Yes, if there's one thing that a history degree taught me, it is that the winners always write the historical stories from those times. What we are seeing now, Joe, I don't know if you can see these pictures, is a further procession of people coming up towards us, including dignitaries, and there we are seeing the coffin of King Richard III, which is now starting to make its way along that path, surrounded, Joe, by a great number of military personnel.
Yes, so from where I'm standing at the moment, I can see people in the distance coming my way, and I presume they are the people in front of the coffin. Yes, I can see the cadets. Now, these cadets are pulling what's called a bier, and it's pulled by the cadets of the Leicestershire, Northamptonshire and Rutland Army Cadet Force to represent the 21st century military. That's why they have been chosen to pull that bier. And it's been very strange today, Adam, to see people dressed in medieval costume. I saw a knight in armour earlier on today, and standing next to one of the cadets that you can see walking towards me now. Very strange to see that juxtaposition.
And so a reminder for those who are tuning in that there is the coffin of King Richard III in Bosworth Field, where he was killed in 1485 with, as Joe was reminding us, a succession of vicious blows to his body, notably to his head. And Joe, just go through what happens now.
So this procession, which is happening in front of me, will probably take, I would imagine, a few minutes to go right across the battlefield. Of course, this is something they will want to take care with. These things, as you would expect, will not be rushed. So, as you can see, the cadets are leading that bier with the coffin. And this is the first time we've seen this coffin today. We've heard about it being released from the university, and it will be received by the cathedral. And lots of people in the city of Leicester will have seen this today. Lots of people in the surrounding villages will have seen this today. But of course, this is where he fell. So 530 years after he fell and died here, he is now being brought back in this oak, lead-lined coffin. The coffin was helped, one of the descendants of Richard helped make this coffin. So that, again, is another truly remarkable thing to see.
And there were, of course, quite lengthy debates, discussions Joe, about whether or not these were the remains of King Richard III. A lot of effort went into confirming that.
Oh yes, there were so many tests that had to be done to confirm it was him. Philippa Langley from the Richard III Society just had this gut feeling it was him, and she didn't want to be swayed away from that. But of course they needed the tests, they needed the DNA technology to prove it was him. And there are people who still think we might be reburying the wrong body, but the experts say they are 99.999% certain it is him, and they say that is a conservative estimate.
Yes, that's about as certain as you can get, I suppose, isn't it? One of the ways that they proved that it was King Richard III, of course, was tracking down the DNA of one of his descendants, which was not that straightforward. There really are not very many people left who you can establish are Richard III's extended family.
Yes, they had to do that through something called mitochondrial DNA, which goes down the mother's line. And yes, they found Michael Ibsen, who is a 17th descendant from Richard III, and they tested him, and that is how they've taken the DNA test and made a match. Like I say, they had to do many other tests. There was carbon testings on the bones to check which century they were from, and that DNA test, as we say, which they say is a match, and they are 99.999% certain it is him, and that, they say, is their conservative estimate.
Well, let's hope they're right. Let's listen in again to events continuing there in Leicestershire, in Bosworth, as King Richard III.
Roads! About turn. Pray! Quick! March! Yeah! Right! Yeah! Right! Yeah! Right! Yeah! Right! Yeah!
Your Royal Highness, Lord Lieutenant, Chairman of the County Council, honoured guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to welcome you to this short service to honour the memory of King Richard and all who fell here in the Battle of Bosworth. This morning, the mortal remains of the King left the University of Leicester, where they've been kept for 2.5 years since their discovery. They have visited Fen Lane's farm, where it is believed the King Richard fell in battle, and they have made their way to Dadlington and Sutton Cheney in the presence of great crowds. From here they will make their way through Market Bosworth to the city and to the cathedral for a service of Compline this evening in the presence of the Cardinal Archbishop of Westminster. It is our responsibility and privilege now to play our special part in this great day of remembrance in which we afford King Richard dignity and honour. Let us keep a moment of quiet reflection as we prepare for this act of worship. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
We meet in the presence of God to remember and commemorate those who died on this battlefield at the Battle of Bosworth, especially King Richard III, who was carried from this place to Leicester as a defeated man. Today, 530 years later, we have the opportunity to allow King Richard to undertake that journey again. This time, however, with the dignity and honour that befits a King of England. We remember with sorrow those whose lives ended at this place, and those whose families were torn apart through death and suffering. We pray for our nation whose history was altered at this place. We repent of our continued need